And then I noticed like the bad luck stopped happening. It just seemed like things were starting to slowly fall into place for me. So I had a different perspective on life. So then the timing with these three college kids approaching me, I was in a different space.
It's time for a real conversation about health. Hi, I'm Dr. Andy Michaud of Total Body Wellness Clinic, and each week on Restore the Real, I'll sit down with a guest to discuss how developing or overcoming health challenges has shaped the way that they live their lives, what they've learned, what they've changed, and how they're moving forward. Health is a deeply personal topic, and each person's experience is unique and significant, no matter the diagnosis. From clinicians to regular people to endurance athletes, you'll hear real stories from real people who aren't afraid to dig deep and share the incredible lessons and thought-provoking insights they've discovered while learning how to survive and even thrive under difficult circumstances. Welcome to Restore the Real. Hello and welcome to Restore the Real. So great to be with you all today. Thank you for listening and tuning in. We've got a great episode planned. And I'm excited because many of you going through health challenges, it becomes an identity. And we want to break free from that identity. And today's guest, Jimmy Carter, is an alchemist for the mind, the body, the spirit. And if you don't know what an alchemist is, it's someone that transforms something into something better. So I love that title. I love that word, the meaning of it. And so, Jimmy, thanks for coming on. I'm excited to have you on today.
I appreciate the invite. And I love talking about these things, mind, body, spirit. And you touched base a little bit on, transformation, identity, right? And turning that into something bigger. And that's a big thing I've been studying here recently. So we tend to identify ourselves with and these labels that get put on us, and getting clients to transition out of that into something bigger and better.
Absolutely. Well, so our audience kind of knows a little bit about you. Could you share a little of your experience? Because you had to make some pivots in your life thinking, hey, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I love. And then one of the things that you shared, well, I'll just let you just share your background and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So right now, currently, I train athletes in anything related to performance enhancement. So strength and conditioning, speed and agility, mindset, injury prevention, rehab. So anything to help the athlete perform their best. I work with high school, college, and professional athletes, but I'm also shifting into more coaching, more so like, I don't like the term life coach. Feel like that's kind of watered down these days, but essentially what I've been doing is looking at people's traumas and their past and helping them get to the root of the story that they're telling themselves so they can make a shift, a transition. And it's been very powerful, the few sessions that I've started doing and everything I've been learning. So I'm looking to scale that right now. But rewind back to when I was playing sports. I played college football at the University of Illinois. And I just had this vision, like pretty much all Division I football players, that I was going to the NFL. So I was obsessed with that dream. Like, I played football since I was 7 years old. Me and my dad, we bonded over football. My dad was a football fanatic. So football was like ingrained in my DNA. So I was so hyper-focused on getting to the NFL that I did anything possible to make that dream a reality. So I did extra workouts. I studied anatomy, physiology. I took really hard science classes in college to understand the deep mechanisms of the body, nutrition. It's just anything I thought could make me better, I would do it. I was just that hyper-focused. And I transformed myself. I went from being a pretty above average athlete, pretty good, to an elite athlete when I graduated college. At the time, when you did these, they call them combines or pro days, but essentially it's like you're being analyzed by NFL scouts. They used to give you a grade back then. It's different now, but back then they would give you a grade out of 10. My athletic grade was a 9.4 out of 10. very athletic. I had 4.34 is my fastest 40-yard dash. I can jump, 43 inches off the ground, like just insane athletic numbers. However, best ability is availability, and I couldn't stay healthy. So, brief stint in camp with the New Orleans Saints, got injured, got sent home. And I'm like, oh wow, like first time in my life I don't have football. I had no clue what I was gonna do with myself. 2 years of depression, just like trying to figure this thing out. I'm at home, I have no job, no money. And one day some kids in my neighborhood, I call them kids because they were younger than me, but they were in college. They wanted to work out with me because they wanted to try out for their college football team. And I didn't have the heart to tell them no. So I'm like, okay, if you're serious about playing college football, I work out at this high school for my condition in the morning, and I train at this gym to get my weight lifted workouts in the evening. If you're serious, you'll show up. Well, they showed up. So no, I'm like, okay, like I got to put a method to the madness because back then I would just do everything. So I started studying Joe DeFranco, very popular strength coach who trained a lot of pro athletes. He had a blog at the time called Ask Joe. So I just would stay up all night studying his blogs, and I've put a method to the madness and learned how to program. And I wrote out our summer workouts, and all three of those guys, they went to Eastern Illinois University. They all made the football team. One graded out as the best athlete on the team. So that's when the light bulb moment went off for me. It's like, this is how I can stay close to football. So I went back to school. I got a master's degree in exercise science. And then shortly after grad school, I started training athletes full time at a gym called Acceleration Sports Performance out here in the Chicago area. However, one thing I noticed that was missing with a lot of athletes was the mindset piece. A lot of athletes, they do the strength and conditioning, they do the speed work. But I was like, you know what? I see that a lot of kids miss the mental piece, right? And factor is social media, all the travel sports, like the pressure on young athletes has never been higher. And I could see it impacting their performance. So I really started to dive into the mindset part of performance more so than the physical part. And I think that's one thing that separates me from more strength coaches is I like to say I speak to their soul. I train their
Oh,
soul.
nice.
A lot of coaches got get them to run sprints and bench press and all that stuff, but who can help them remove the blocks that's keeping them from being at their best? How can I teach them that their anxiety is really preparing them for battle as opposed to something to fear? Right. So that's really what I start to dive into. So the first person I need to coach was myself. So went crazy on personal development. I went to see Tony Robbins back in 2017. That was life changing. Walking across the hot coals really shifted my mindset to show me in real time that when you put your mind to something, nothing can stop you. To walk on hot burning coals and not get burned was one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had. So I just really became obsessed with my own personal growth. And then as I grow, I would share that with my clients and my athletes. And
Nice.
it's been really powerful. I've developed some of the best athletes in the country. Several play professional football. If there's any, uh, college or NFL fans listening, there's quite a few guys who you would know that I've worked with since they were in high school. And it's been a good process. It's really my purpose because that's the coach that I needed when I was young. I just did a lot of things on my own, a lot of studying on my own because my parents couldn't afford a coach or a trainer. So just to be that mentor to them has been very fulfilling. But now what I've been learning at this stage of personal development about the nervous system and these labels that get put upon us and they become our identity is like, wow, like this is the missing piece. I always felt there
Absolutely.
was something missing in the self-help, the spiritual world. I always felt like there was something missing. And this is the missing piece. What I found is that a lot of us have these root traumas and these responses from these traumas. And what happens is they become our identity. Like, oh, well, somebody's had a traumatic experience and they get labeled as having depression. Well, then what do they start saying? Well, I'm depressed or I'm or I'm bipolar. I'm this, I'm that. Or even if, like in my case, playing football some years, I am a football player. Well, when you
Right.
make something your identity, right, it can really hold you back. And what I want, my mission is to help people really shift out of that and understand that those were parts of you, but it's not you. And those parts of you is what makes you whole. And when you step into your wholeness, that's when you really ascend to your best life. But we have to remove the limited thinking of this specific identity. So it's been a very, very fun journey, very fun process, very fulfilling. And it's just the beginning.
That's so cool. You know, those words that I am, those are probably two of the most powerful words, because what comes after that is it,
Mhm,
it, it becomes the definition of who we are and how we define ourselves. And we don't even think about it, right? There's many people that just don't realize what that means and how that does ingrain and wire into the nervous system, whether it's by themselves that are saying that, or they accept that label from somebody else, which is
mhm,
so easy to do. But I want to go back really quick.
mhm,
So, as you said, you're injured, you're still working out, and then these kids come up and they're like, "Hey, can you help us?" It would have been really easy for you to be angry, frustrated, like, I've worked my entire life for this, and now I'm injured and I can't, and, like, whatever, just get out of here. What was it? Because again, doors open when we least expect them to, right?
mhm,
And we don't walk through every door that is there to open. Sometimes we completely miss them. And even if we do step into it, we may be like, okay, whatever, and then shut the door behind us and walk out. You
mhm,
didn't do that. Like, what was there something in your mind? Um, and what was that process of you recognizing, hey, wait, there's something here. Maybe my purpose isn't to play on the big stage. Maybe my purpose is to help hundreds, thousands of people do this as well, and what fulfillment there is. But was there something that like shifted in you as you were training those three college students, or what even like propelled you to go that direction? Like what was it in your mind? Because again, I've seen a lot of people, and myself included, where something happens and there's a lot of guilt, a lot of blame, and a door opens and you're like, whatever,
mhm,
shut the door and God help me. It's like, "Ah, the door was just open. You missed that door."
mhm. Yeah, that's a great question. And I would say initially I was very angry, very bitter, pointing the finger a lot. Why me? I'm sitting at home and I'm watching guys who I know I'm faster than, I know I'm stronger than, playing on the game that I love at the level I want to play it at, and I'm at home struggling. So I was very angry. I was very bitter. However, one day, as fate would have it, I wound up at the library. I was trying to get a computer to apply for jobs. My internet at home got cut off. I was living with my mom at the time, just struggling. All the computers were taken, so I'm walking through the book section, and I just happened to come by the book The Secret. And I had heard about The Secret from multiple sources, so I picked it up and I started reading it, and it was so captivating. I was like, "You know what? I need to read this book." So I check it out, I go home, I read it that night, and that's when I first realized the power of our thoughts, and I was just reflecting on everything. I was like, "Man, I'm doing a lot of finger pointing, I'm doing a lot of blaming. The habits I'm doing every day is not serving me. Like, if I want different results, I need to do something different." So I began to really journal deeply. I bring a journal with me. If I caught myself being negative, I pull the journal out and I'd flip it. Like, how can I spin this into something positive? And started practicing more gratitude for the things that I did have, even if it wasn't much. I remember being so grateful that I was eating a peanut butter sandwich. I couldn't afford jelly, but I had bread and peanut butter. So
Bread
I
and
was
peanut butter,
remember
man.
genuinely being grateful because there's people that don't even get that opportunity. And that what I noticed once I started doing that was I started to feel better in my body, start to feel better. And then I noticed like the bad luck stopped happening. It just seemed like things were starting to slowly fall into place for me. So I had a different perspective on life. So then the timing with these three college kids approaching me, I was in a different space. So I came from a place of service, like, absolutely, I want to help you, as opposed to like, just being all bitter. I'm like, oh man, no, guys, I'm not a trainer. It's not what I do. I can't help you. Which probably would have been the case had they approached me when I first got sent home. But I was in a different space of just serving and giving and understanding that, what you give out comes back to you. And I had an experience and I've been on the journey that they were trying to go on. So I saw it as an opportunity for them to reach their goal and I could be the vessel to help them. But it also gave me somebody to work out with too, a little selfish design, because I was working out by myself. So that was really cool too. But I just saw it as an opportunity to help three guys who had a dream of playing Division I football, an opportunity most people don't get. So I saw it as a way to show them exactly what they need to do to get there. And I said, yeah, let's like, if you're serious, let's make it happen. And that's how it all unfolded.
That's so cool. It's listening to, people's stories and even the perspective of looking back and seeing how life is really happening for us, not to us. Like that does take work to
Mhm.
to have that perspective. But I think it's so awesome to see you were at the library for a completely different purpose,
Mhm.
right? You're there to apply for jobs. All the computers just happen to be taken, right? Walking through the library, you find this book. Like God is in the details of our lives,
Yes.
right? And I believe that again, we're not going to be forced to do things, but if we take those opportunities, which may seem so minute and so insignificant, and yet that book, catching that book, reading that book, applying it, not just reading, because it's so
Mhm.
easy to like read and be like, well, that's not really for me. But why not for me? And then start doing it. Gratitude,
Mhm.
journaling, carrying a journal around with you. I mean, I hope that those that are listening see it's not rocket science,
No.
right? It's these little steps that we take that seem so insignificant, but they can open up doors that we had no imagination that this would even happen. And so I love that you shared that, and how that then has got you to where you are now. Um, you were talking about the the mind, the nervous system integration, the trauma. I'm curious, what is it that you've done that's caused you to go there? Because it would be easy to just focus on, what so many people do, the
Yeah.
body, and hey, we got to do these drills and take these supplements, eat this way. But what was it that had, what, we got to make a shift. We got to focus on this aspect. Because I totally agree with you that these traumas, whether real or perceived, it doesn't matter.
Mhm.
I those things can be so detrimental. They can lead to chronic illness, depression, anxiety, lack of performance, right? People
Mhm.
get the yips in sports and it's like they have the ability, but
Yeah.
something is there holding them back. Why did you, why have you started to pivot that direction and work more on the mind?
Yeah. Great questions. So for me, it somewhat it came in layers. I would say the first was when I studied like the greats, the Michael Jordans, the Jerry Rices, the greats of all time. The common link that I saw was their mindset. I mean, they just had this will to do whatever it took to be the best. And I tell young athletes, I'm like, champions, they don't focus on winning. Winning's the byproduct. They focus on being the best. Whenever they step on the court, whenever they step on the field, whatever drill it is, that's their focus. They want to make every single rep the best rep that they could possibly do. And as a result, they wound up being great. So that's when I first realized, like, okay, it's not just the physical, because I see a lot of physically talented guys that don't play to their potential because they don't have the mental capacity, whether it's they get fear, anxiety, just they freeze up when the lights are on, or they don't have the work ethic to really fine tune the little things that'll make them great, things like that. So that's what made me really look into more of the psychology side as it relates to sports performance. And then as I'm doing the work on myself, I noticed that as I was growing stronger mentally, things in my life were improving. And along that way, I started studying stress management. So this is before I got into like trauma work in the nervous system, but like stress management. Um, and I realized like how many people have learned to just function through their stress and are really poor at managing it,
Right.
you know? So that's when I started like, okay, like we got to look at this here, especially these younger athletes with, again, the pressure, social media. They're so stressed out. They got all this competition. They're trying to get a scholarship. They have school. Some of them come from very humble upbringings. It's a lot. So I'm like, okay, if they got all this going on outside of sports, and then I come in and I'm beating them up more, adding more stress to them, how are they going to be at their best? So that's when I started to really learn about stress management and things like that, and just help their recovery because they are under a lot. And some people would look at my approach as like being easy, but it's like, no, it's not easy. I understand results come from the recovery and the minimum effective dose. I'm only going to give them what they need for them to be at their best, and that's it. Go do something else. Go let it integrate. Go let the work you just did with me, go let it integrate. Go play some video games. Take your mind off the game. Let everything you've done kind of sit in. So when you come back, you're better. If I keep breaking you down, breaking you down, eventually you're either going to get injured or you're going to be psychologically burnt out, which I see a lot of young athletes. So I really started to focus on that part of that as well. So the mindset, but also the recovery piece. And it's the results have been phenomenal. A lot of parents and old school coaches still don't understand it, but it is what it is. I care about the athlete and that they're getting better, and always keep track to make sure that they are progressing. And as time was going on with me personally, as I'm growing, I felt like I was hitting a cap. I'm reading all the books. I'm doing a journal. I don't watch TV anymore. I meditate. I do breath work. I think positive, but I felt like I was hitting a cap in my life. Like what's going on? It felt like I would make progress and then get knocked back down. Make progress, get knocked back down. And I'm like, what is it? Why do I feel like I'm in quicksand? Well, I started dating a beautiful, amazing young lady, still together. And she's very growth oriented too. So it's a beautiful thing. And she joined this mastermind. Um, the coach was Garen Jones. She joined this mastermind. I wasn't in the mastermind, but I did the activities with her. And the first few weeks of it, you're diving into your inner child work and shadow work and those things. And interesting enough about that, my undergraduate degree is psychology, and we barely talked about that stuff. Right. And it just made sense when Garen was explaining like inner child and your shadows and those concepts. I was like, you know what? Yeah, I look back at my childhood and I wouldn't quite think of it as what most would consider trauma, but I think of things that were showing up in my adult life. I can link back to things that happened when I was a kid. So those subconscious behaviors were coming up because it was the 5, 6, 7-year-old me being triggered and recreating those scenarios as an adult. So that's where the block was.
Yeah.
So dove in deep. We both did this together. We both dove deep into this work. It was hard. I'll be honest. It was hard.
Oh, it is hard. It is not. Like you think physical work is hard.
Yes.
This work is really because it pushes your beliefs of who you are. I mean, you almost have to like redefine who you are, who your parents were, the different people in your life,
Mhm.
and and that's challenging because it
Yes.
is pushing on what your perception always was, and it's like, whoa, I gotta like recreate almost all of this. And yeah, really quick, I do want to say one thing about this. If people don't understand why their their childhood may have an impact on them, for the first 7 years of our life, the brain is open,
Mhm.
meaning there's not a necessarily a filter that an individual can compartmentalize that and be like, you
Mhm.
know what, they were just upset. They were just angry, and that's why that was said. There's not that ability to do that the first 7 years of life. So it is anything that is said or done to that child is integrated into their body where it's just full belief. It is true, it is real. And for those listening, that locks in. That
Mhm.
sets into the nervous system. And as an example, for me growing up, I always and I love my dad. He's passed away, and I've made so much growth in this area. But I always heard, "You're not, you're not strong enough, you're not
Mhm.
fast enough." You tell my brother who had some challenges, "You can't do this, you can't do that." And as a kid, it just locked in.
Mhm.
And so anytime difficult situations came up, what is my default? "Oh, I can't do that. I'm not good enough." And doing this work that you're talking about, oh my gosh, tears, stress, anxiety,
Yes.
anger, rage, like, and then finally I've come to a place of love and acceptance and realizing, wait, this is exactly what I needed.
Mhm.
But I just want people to know that those 7 first years are so formative and will and can, not will necessarily, but can influence everything from that point on. So that work is essential. So sorry, I interrupted you, but I want people to
Right.
know how important those first 7 years are. And if you're stuck in your health, stuck in a certain place, that work is essential and I think critical to overcoming whatever it may be.
Oh, absolutely. You hit it right on the head. Those first 7 years are everything. I believe the number is 95% of everything you learn the rest of your life happens in those first 7 years. So it's crucial. And if you had some experience, like my dad was the same way. His intent was good, but the execution was flawed. Like
Right.
he wanted me to be disciplined and work hard and those things, but it came from like a military. My dad was in the army, so military style. Very very stern. Oh, no matter how good you are, somebody else is better. You can always work harder. And so a wound that was in me was I felt like I wasn't good enough. And because I achieved a lot because I was deep down subconsciously trying to get my dad to say, good job. You're great. And it was tough doing that work and going back and reparenting and reframing a lot of those stories. And like you said, the rage, the tears. And as men, I know me personally, I was programmed not to cry, not to feel feelings, to be numb, to just cope and push through. So to
Avoid it
allow
all.
myself to feel all of that was scary. And again, my partner, she's doing the work at the same time. So like, that not just me, it's me and her. And it was so many emotions and it was so tough. And would have been easy for me to be like, nope, I'm going back. I'm just stuffing back down. This is too much, which a lot of people do. However, I knew this was something that I needed. And I'm like, I have to go through this. I have to go through this. And when I did, I would say that once I got through and released all that and repaired to the inner child and integrated all these parts of myself and did all this work for several months, everything changed. All those blocks that were holding me back, gone. Things that were like triggering me or used to take me down a mental spiral, gone. If I feel myself coming from like an ego space, that I can catch myself and pull myself back in the frame where I have so much more control of my nervous system and just remaining like regulated. And if something happens, I have the tools now to bring myself back down. And what I notice is that my capacity to hold space is so much bigger. And things that I would maybe stop myself from doing, I used to do a lot of freeze response. So I would just get stuck.
Yeah.
I don't have that anymore because I'm so expanded now. But I had to release this dead weight. Think of a hot air balloon, right? You can put all the heat in the balloon if you want, but if those weights aren't lifted, you're not going anywhere. So that's essentially what I did was I just was letting go of that weight holding me down. And it was interesting again, because I wouldn't say I had a traumatizing childhood. I was never sexually abused. My dad didn't beat me, even though he was tough on me, but he didn't beat me. But my parents loved me, like on paper checklist stuff, it was like, oh, you had an easy childhood. And compared to some others, yeah, but when you're 6 or 7 years old, you don't have that filter. You don't understand that dad's being tough on you for this reason. You just understand he didn't say good job, right? You just understand. You don't understand that like he just wanted you to be tough, but so he's softer on your sisters, stuff like that. You just don't understand. You just know your needs aren't getting being met, or you're not being validated, and that it just is, and it sits in you. And as adults, these things show up, and I try to get people to reframe the mindset of like when you get triggered by different things, it's an opportunity now to look deep within you, like, hey, that's a part of you that wants attention, that needs some loving right now. It's as opposed to like running from it or projecting any sort of like anger or hate towards the thing that, fired up the trigger. I look at it as a mirror, like, okay, it's showing me something within me I need to take a deeper look at. I need some love right now. And shifting to this has, like I said, it's changed my life. I can't tell you last time I had a bad day. I'm so at peace and I'm so grounded, and everything it's to me, it's just perfect because it just is.
Now let me
I
ask
love it.
this. So does that just happen? Because people could say, well, I've done the work and
Yeah,
and I got to this place, but it's not lasting. Is this something that continues to take work, or is it a destination? Do you
that is
arrive?
a great question. Great question. It always takes work. It's never a destination. It's never a destination. The work never stops. So I do this stuff every day. Every day I'm doing something. Um, and the good thing is because I have the tools that I don't brush anything off anymore. Like if something like triggers me or something gets me worked up or I'm stressed about something, that I have the tools to kind of bring me back down, reframe. If I have to go deep, then I could go deep in the process. I don't suppress anymore, but it's constantly ongoing. I'm still in Garrett's coaching group now. He has so there was the mastermind that my girlfriend did last year, but he also has a monthly group coaching that I'm in, and I'm on every call. I'm on every call. We do calls 5 days a week with a different coach. I'm on every call. Even if I don't need coaching, I still want to be in that energy because maybe I will hear something like, oh, I need to hear that today. There's podcasts I listen to. I'm just very mindful about um, not slipping back into old habits of suppression or not feeling or letting the ego run the show. So it's never a destination. If you have destination thinking, what's going to happen is you'll do the work, you'll feel good, but then you'll eventually start to go back to those old habits. Because what I've learned is what I don't like in talk therapy is like, oh, you're a new person now. You're not a new person. You're not a new person. You are you. And all those experiences that you had are still a part of you. They didn't go anywhere. Even if you reframed it, there's still that experience that was tough is still in you, still a part of you. So if you don't know how to give that part of you light and love when it needs it, what will happen is when life gets to life and things come up and you stop giving that part of you that needs the love and light, you'll revert back to those old self-sabotaging behaviors and letting the trauma run the show over time. So it always takes work, but it's worth it.
Has it ever felt like, man, I have to do this stuff? Or is it, I get to do this? Like, was there a
Yes.
time when you started this where it's like, do I have to do this again today? Like, I need to meditate again. I've got stuff to do. Because I know personally, like, I felt that way at times where
Mhm.
I'm like, do I really have to do this again? Can it just happen? Like, I did it
Yeah.
yesterday. I did it like, the week before. I did it for a month. Can I just like
Mhm.
not do it today? Versus, hey, I get to do this today. Was there a shift, or how have you experienced that? Because I do hear this from people that I work with.
Mhm.
It's like, how long am I going to have to do this? Like, how long are you going to live? I
Yeah.
mean, and they hate that answer, but it's like, uh, so, but what I'd like you to share is,
Mhm.
was this, did this transition from a, man, I have to do this work, to now I get to do this? Or has it always felt like once you learned it, like, man, I get to do this every day. This is amazing. And how did you get to that place?
Yeah. Great question, because I get asked that too. Like, how long do I have to do this? I'm like, well, as long as you're breathing.
Yeah.
But, but
Yeah.
for me, it was because I'm obsessed with growth. So it never felt like a chore for me. Now, I will say when I was in the middle of the deep wounds, the inner child stuff, like there was a part of me that wanted to stop because the feelings were like overwhelming. I mean, I cried more this past year than I did my whole adult life. And that was tough. And I just remember sometimes even feeling a little sick, like I want to throw up. And that was overwhelming and scary. And then again, my relationship got rocky all of a sudden. I had this amazing relationship, and now it's like, it's going crazy. It's very emotional. So there was a part of me that there was a brief moment where I did question, like, am I doing the right thing? Like everything was fine until then. Why? This is tough. But one thing I learned about growth is you got to lean into it. So I just leaned to it, and I just kept telling myself, like, there's light at the end of this storm. This is only temporary. Get through it. Get through it. And I did. And I wish I could say there was like an epiphany moment where it was like, oh, there's the sun. It's very gradual, but as time went on, I just noticed different shifts just in my energy, how my body felt, how people around me were responding to me, my energy, my charisma. So I noticed these subtle shifts. And over time, these subtle shifts, I was like, oh wow, like hey, I'm in a good space right now.
Yeah.
I'm in a good space. But it's never felt like a chore. Um, it's for me, it's been like more curiosity now, like, oh, how much more can I expand? How much more can I grow?
Right.
Now, I will say a trap that that can happen, and I did this too. A lot of people can make this mistake is when they're doing the work, is like they're doing this work and you're doing your inner child work, and then you get triggered again, and you go back, you do a process, and you get triggered again. You go back and do a process, and you're like, like what's going on? Like I'm doing the work. Why does this keep coming back up? Or why do I keep getting tested this way? Or why am I not feeling, X, Y, Z? And you can start to shame yourself
So
for
easy.
it. And that's what I did. I was what a block that I had to work through, and that really actually accelerated my results even faster was I was shaming myself because I felt like I should be further along. Like I'm doing all this work. I shouldn't be bothered by this anymore. Like what's happening? I'm all in. Why does this keep coming up? And I was shaming and judging myself. I had to remove the shame and understand that, like, no, this is just another opportunity to give yourself some love and light. So I started giving myself more grace during the process. And as I did that, that's where I really noticed like the next step in the journey really started to ascend faster because I removed that judgment and shame. And it can be very easy to do that if you're expecting things to happen when you want them to, or
Right.
you think you have destination thinking and you're not at the destination yet, but you're doing like this work every day. So really removing the judgment and shame was huge for me in how, I just how I approached the work. And whatever outcomes are happening as going through these processes, just being okay with it and not judging it.
I hope people really get what you're saying here, that, you know, it's not a destination. And how do you come off of the destination? It's by focusing on the growth,
Hmm.
by appreciating the growth. If we're destination mindset, as you've said, that destination may arrive, it may not. I know in my own experience when I do Spartan races, love them.
Oh, nice.
And at a time it was like, if I can just get this time,
Hmm.
then I'll be happy. And you know what happened? I got to the end of the race and I'm like, okay, now what?
Hmm.
And I missed the whole experience. Like I looked back again, it was frustration. It was, man, I should have trained better. I could have trained harder. I could
Hmm.
have done this. And now I've come to a place where I'm like, you know what? It's not about the destination. It is about the growth. What am I experiencing along the way? And then you said something else so critical as well, and that is to replace expectation with appreciation, right?
Yes.
If we have that mindset of this is what I expect, then man, there are a lot of disappointments in life, right? We kind of compare ourselves to this ideal, and that ideal is not, it's not realistic. Like,
No.
because it's I think the images in our mind of the things on social media, what we see, it's like we create this ideal, we fall short of that, but miss the rapid and massive growth and beauty that's happened along the way. And so those two things, focus on growth, not destination, and replace expectation with appreciation. And man, from what you've said, it's just those two things have transformed your life. I mean,
Absolutely.
right? Now you have a daughter, right?
Yeah.
How, and well, maybe we'll, as we wrap this up, I would love to know, how has this influenced you as a father? And what has changed since you've been doing this work on yourself? How do you show up for your kids?
Yeah. That's another great question. Prior to my daughter being born, I was your typical 20-something-year-old. I'm going out, I'm drinking, I'm getting drunk. I had a bunch of buddies in the NFL, living a rock star lifestyle. Then when I found out I was going to be a dad, I gave all that up. I'm like, I don't need to be doing this. I have a mouth to feed now. So I need to step up to the plate. So I changed a lot of my habits, and I just love being a dad. From the moment the nurse handed her to me the first time, I was just like, I'm never putting you down. And, like, I just love the process of being a dad at all. Like, if she needed to somebody to stay up with her all night, I'd stay up with her all night. I didn't care. Like, I stayed up all night before. Why would I not do it for my daughter? And I don't know. I just think being a dad is the coolest thing ever. But I will say, like, as I'm growing and doing the work, I think the biggest one, because I've always loved fatherhood. However, me and her mother don't have a great relationship. It's very, I'll say, we're not aligned. I'll just put it the nicest way possible. I mean, I went to 2 years of therapy after that relationship. I mean, it was tough, but doing this work has allowed me to co-parent a lot better. So like when her mom tries to get under my skin or, take shots at my new relationship where before I would like feel like I need to defend myself or argue with her, go through these spirals or let it even ruin my day. Like because I had these tools to regulate myself and I'm so much more expanded and I understand that she's got her own trauma that she has to deal with and I don't take it personally anymore. It allows me to show up differently when I have to interact with her mom in front of her,
Yes.
showing her what a grounded masculine is, as opposed to somebody who's reacting to this, situation. I'm much more grounded, much more relaxed in front of her when I have to interact with her mom. So I think that's been a huge piece because I remember seeing my parents argue and it was traumatizing. I hated to see my parents in the same room with each other because all they did was argue. Right. So able to show up differently in front of my daughter for that has been a huge, huge piece because my daughter's mom, she tries it with me. She really tries to get under my skin. And I'm very grateful that I had these tools that I can remain strong, stoic, grounded, not take it personally, and be that example in front of my daughter.
You're an amazing individual. Just, I love your story. It's a beautiful story, and it's beautiful because it continues, right? You continue to expand and continue to grow, and like I love the name of your podcast, right? The transition, and we make transitions. Maybe it's more than that, but we make transitions through our life, and these mindset changes, perspective changes, they're such a part of our lives. And I love how you've shared those with us to help us see wherever you are in life. If you're an athlete, if you're not, if you can't even like walk, do stuff, if you're wheelchair bound, doesn't matter. Like the mind and the growth and the work to be done can change perspective and help us see like really the worth of our soul, right?
Yes.
And how there's so much value there. And it's nothing, it's not external, it's all from within. And I think the work that you've done on yourself has really brought out, right, that alchemist, right? We started with that.
Yeah.
You help people transform things to make them better, but you couldn't do that unless you did it on yourself first. And it's just a beautiful message. And I hope people do hear and listen and probably re-listen to this, because there's so many points that you made today that bring that out
Mhm.
and show that it's not a destination, it's not an expectation, it's just allow the process to happen and work. It's going to take work. It's not
Yes.
easy. But I mean, but from watching you and reading different things that I've read on you, it's like, wow, what a journey, what a experience. So I just want to thank you for who you are and thank you for coming on today. It's been such a pleasure to have you. Um, any final thoughts as we wrap up, and then where can people find you?
Well, first things first, I appreciate you having me on. I love these conversations with like-minded
Oh,
individuals, and I think more of this message needs to be spread because it's that important. And there's a lot of people in the collective where if they can do this work, we'll see a shift in society,
yeah.
a huge shift, especially in the family dynamic. So I appreciate you having me on. Um, so yeah, last thoughts, I would say, and you touched on this already, but like it's cliche, but trust the process. Enjoy the journey. Always remember the goalpost will always move. The target will always move. You set a goal, you hit it, you think that's going to make you happy. The way the mind is wired, you're going to want something else. That's just how we're wired. So if you could take the expectation off of the external, that when I get this thing or when I make this money or when I meet this person, then I'll be happy or fulfilled. If we could shift that energy and put it internal and just enjoy being who you are, being grateful, enjoying the journey, and just accepting it for what this is what your soul needs for your highest good, life gets exponentially better for you. But if you continue to chase things outside of you, you'll never be fulfilled and you'll be met with more disappointment than you will excitement.
Awesome. And where can people find you?
Yeah, so I put most of my content on Instagram. So at ingrained INGRAINED, the number two train. My website's also www.ingrained2train.com. Facebook, Jimmy Carter, and I have a YouTube channel as well. Ingrain the Train. I'm just started posting a lot again. I got out of the habit, but I got quite a few content on there. I'm about to go back to YouTube. And then my podcast is called The Transition. So you did have it right. And that's where I interview former athletes, really about their shift from their identity of being an athlete and their journey to their higher purpose and what that whole process looks like, just to help anybody, not just athletes, but anybody who may be feeling stuck or feel like there's something missing in their life so they can understand that your journey is not who you are. It's just part of the process and it's fueling you for bigger things. And that's on Spotify right now.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for coming on. Appreciate you. And please like and share, right? This message, specifically this one's so important to get out, so important to share with others. So please like it, please share it, please leave us a review. That's how we, how this podcast gets more credibility, gets out there more. And until next time, keep it real.